PlayStation is a story of success, selling over 500 million home consoles and portables across multiple generations of systems and over 20 years of active business in the video game industry. And while their competition has always dominated the handheld space, Sony themselves has made several admirable attempts to take on their competition and become market leader in the same manner that they have with home consoles. And with them officially announcing they are ceasing all future plans in the portable business in 2019, I couldn't think of a better time to take a look back and see where Sony's tale in the portable gaming business began. Welcome to the ultimate PlayStation portable comparison, the evolution of PlayStation portables. With the unstoppable success that was the original PlayStation or PS1 system, Sony Computer Entertainment set their eyes in the portable gaming landscape. And so, in May 11, 2004, Sony Computer Entertainment's CEO and father of the PlayStation brand, Ken Kutaragi, took to the global stage and unveiled to the world the first generation of PlayStation Portable, the PSP 1000 series. When looking back on this device, it's crazy to see just how far ahead of its time the PSP truly was. It featured a 4.3-inch 480 by 272 liquid crystal display capable of showing over 16 million different colors. It featured built-in Wi-Fi connectivity for connecting to and accessing the PlayStation Network and downloading your favorite games, music, and movies via the PlayStation Store. And it also gave users the ability to browse the internet to do whatever they wanted long before any of these features became mainstream and industry standards for smartphones. Of course, to do all this and store all this information, the PSP systems came bundled with a 32 megabyte memory stick duo card for saving all your information. However, 32 megabytes was not a lot to brag about even in 2004, so fortunately for most users, they could upgrade long past this into the gigabytes in terms of storage. The PSP even came bundled with an 1800 mAh rechargeable and interchangeable lithium-ion battery to keep your PSP juiced up for on-the-go play and to switch it out in the event that there was any failure with the battery. Perhaps the main medium in which most players consumed and enjoyed both their movies and games on PSP came in the form of the Universal Media Disc, or UMD. Now, you might be wondering why Sony bothered to implement optical-based media in a portable, and you have to understand, in 2004, manufacturing memory cards, which is what was used up to this point for portables, was expensive, and the PSP was trying to bring PS2 level gaming on the go. So they needed a way to get a lot of storage on a format that was cheap to manufacture, and that's where the UMD came in. Like any medium that's optical-based, it wasn't without its issues. The Universal Media Disc plagued the PSP with long loading times, and although the graphics were great, especially for their time, loading times were the biggest issue that many users complained of. So, in 2007, after 3 years of active business with the PSP 1000 series, Sony Computer Entertainment announced the PSP 2000 series. This particular PSP was 19% slimmer and 33% lighter than the previous 1000 model, but they made some internal revisions and hardware changes that many users liked as well. They changed the LCD so it was much brighter and easily viewable in bright conditions or in outside light, and they also doubled the internal RAM and ROM, with a portion now acting as a cache to improve web browser performance and to mitigate the long loading times that plagued all of the PSP 1000 models. But perhaps the most unique change to the PSP 2000 series when compared to its 1000 counterparts was the AV output addition to the bottom of the PSP. With this, you can output your favorite movies or PSP games to your television set in 480i with the help of composite cables, or in 480p with the help of component cables. Despite the improvements made to the PSP 2000 series over the 1000 series, it wasn't without its problems. Many players complained and voiced concern over the fact that the PSP 2000's brighter screen was ghosting and leaving blurring effects during gameplay. So in 2008, Sony Computer Entertainment announced the PSP 3000 series. which was pretty much more of the same as the 2000 series, but featured an even newer LCD capable of displaying an increased color range, 5 times the contrast ratio, and halved the pixel response time to help mitigate the ghosting and blurring that plagued the PSP 2000 series. The 3000 series even included a built-in microphone for online chat, although not all was perfect with the 3000 either. While the screen was once again considered a general improvement over the 2000 in the same way that the 2000s was considered an improvement over the 1000s, the 3000 also had its own fair share of issues, and that was scan lines. Now personally, with this PSP that I'm holding right here in front of me, this is my main PSP I play games on. And I don't notice the scan lines. What I notice is how much brighter this screen is compared to either of the previous PSP systems that came before it. And up to this point, it is my personal favorite PSP of all the models so far. While the PSP 3000 series would remain the main variant of PSP available for most of the consumers in most of the global markets, that certainly didn't stop Sony from trying to innovate their already successful PlayStation Portable platform. And in October of 2009, Sony Computer Entertainment unveiled to the world the PSP N1000 series, or as it was formerly known as PSP Go. The PSP Go is 43% lighter and 56% smaller than the original PSP 1000 series, and is 16% lighter and over 35% smaller than the 3000 series it was meant to coexist alongside with. The screen is also a bit smaller, coming in at 3.8 inches at the same resolution compared to the 4.3 inches that was found on all of the previous models as well. It also features a brand new proprietary all-in-one USB port for charging and video output, as well as data transfer, and it also featured Bluetooth connectivity so you can tether your favorite wireless headsets or a DualShock 3 controller to play your favorite PSP games or PS1 classics on the big screen without actually needing to hold the PSP Go system. In terms of just pure functionality, the PSP Go is without a doubt in my mind my favorite PSP up to this point. It's so small and compact compared to the previous models, it fits in your pocket with ease and you can literally take it anywhere you want to on the go. And it also features that Bluetooth connectivity for tethering a DualShock 3 and playing your favorite PSP games or PS1 classics on your TV without the need of having to actually hold the system the same way you did with the 2000 or the 3000 series. It also features a dock that you can use to dock the system, which can charge it and output its component signal to your TV and tether it with the DualShock 3 to act as basically a Nintendo Switch long before the Nintendo Switch came out to the marketplace. It really is the best PSP in terms of just pure functionality. However, it wasn't without its drawbacks. The lack of the universal media disk drive meant that it was incompatible with all previously released PSP software, and the result was, it bombed. It was the biggest flop in the entire lineup of PSP systems, and it was discontinued in 2011 amid poor sales that were basically non-existent. And the 3000 series lived on as the primary PSP that kept moving throughout the system's lifespan. As I had mentioned previously, this was not the last of Sony's efforts to breathe some new life in the PSP family of systems, and there was one region that got one PSP that was exclusive. Say hello to the PSP E1000 Street series. This particular PSP was released only in the PAL territories, and when you look at it on paper, in many ways it was a step backward from the PSP 3000 series. Not only was it bulkier, but it also killed the stereo output, the AV output, and killed all online functionality for the PSP system. But let's talk about what the PSP Street series did have to offer. While it was certainly a stripped down version of the PSP 3000 series, all of this was done for a reason. You see, the PSP E1000 Street series was advertised in the PAL regions as a budget-friendly PSP, going for about 99 euros at the time, much cheaper than the 3000 series was going for in the other territories. While it was certainly a step backward in terms of its thickness, it is much thicker than the 3000 series, mind you. It reminds me of the 1000 series in terms of its bulk, because while it's certainly thicker than the 3000 series, the added thickness of it feels good in the hands without the added weight that the 1000 series has.
It's also worth noting that this one, unlike all the others, features an all matte finish on the front and back, meaning it will not attract fingerprints as fast as the 1000, 2000, 3000, or the PSP Go does. In terms of its general screen quality, it's not quite as good as the 3000 series, but it's not exactly a step backward either. I've noticed that in general, when you compare the E1000 Street series screen to the PSP 3000 and even the Go, the colors aren't quite as saturated and look a little bluer in nature, and whether or not this looks better or not is certainly up for interpretation. I'll leave it for you to decide. The only area of the E1000 Street series that I personally do not like, even though it looks nice, is actually the UMD door itself. Unlike previous versions of the PSP where the UMD door was a cutout that stood out quite a bit, the E1000 Street series has taken up the entire back chassis, which looks really sleek. But the moment you go to open it up, you realize how cheaply it's built because it flings around like crazy. It's not exactly the most premium feeling thing, and the way the discs kind of just fly around in there compared to the other models isn't exactly the most satisfying sound either. But what's here isn't all that bad, and to be completely honest,
If I had to pick between these two for mostly on-the-go play, I would take this one because most PSP systems are incompatible with most Wi-Fi standards these days, and if you're just going to play UMDs, this system is perfect. However, it was only released in the PAL regions, and this was the last system they would ever get until the system was discontinued outright in 2014.
the PSP family of systems would go on to amount a library of over 1,400 titles from developers around the world, and its software catalog certainly showed. It was diverse, just like you would have come to expect from PlayStation 2 and even PlayStation 3. The PSP truly was the PlayStation experience on the go. If you look through its catalog, I'm sure you'll find plenty of games that appeal to you as an individual player. And with this, PSP would go on to sell over 82 million units worldwide.
After making such an impact in the portable gaming realm, Sony had already set their eyes onto the future, and in 2011 took to the global stage and announced NGP, the next generation portable and successor to the PlayStation Portable. The NGP featured a 5-inch OLED screen, a rear touchpad, 6-axis accelerometers and gyroscopes that were featured in the DualShock 3, GPS and 3G connectivity, and dual analog sticks, all of which were firsts for any handheld ever made. It was all neatly packed in a chassis not much bigger than the PSP and featured a new OS called the Live Area to show it all off. Sony wasted no time, with games like Uncharted, Gravity Rush, Wipeout, Little Big Planet, and even an exclusive Call of Duty game all being shown off or hinted at during the press briefing. The future of the NGP seemed bright, and Sony seemed like it was set to achieve new heights that were never thought possible with even PSP. At E3 2011, Sony Computer Entertainment CEO Kaz Hirai took to the stage and announced to the world that the NGP had officially been named PlayStation Vita. It would be available in two main variants, a Wi-Fi only model or a 3G model, giving players the ability to stay connected wherever they were in the world with the partnership of AT&T. However, at the 11th hour, Sony made a series of announcements that would go on to plague the PlayStation Vita for the rest of the console's lifecycle. Sony announced that unlike PSP, which used the M2 Micro series and the Memory Stick Duo series, the PS Vita would be utilizing an all-new proprietary format that was used only with PlayStation Vita, and the prices were nothing short of astronomical and by themselves acted as a barrier of entry for any player looking to get into gaming on the platform. And bear in mind, standard micro SDHC cards were available at a fraction of the price and were more versatile rather than just the one device that the PS Vita's proprietary cards were meant for. Despite this, PlayStation Vita would go on to launch on December 17th in Japan, with the rest of the territories following shortly thereafter, and the first and second week sales of the platform seemed promising, but immediately dropped off afterwards. From 2011 to 2013, sales for the PlayStation Vita would remain exceptionally sluggish despite the release of some fantastic titles like Uncharted Golden Abyss, Wipeout 2048, Killzone Mercenary, Little Big Planet, and Persona 4 Golden, so Sony attempted to remedy this by announcing an immediate price cut for the PlayStation Vita, now starting at $199 for the Wi-Fi only models. But that wasn't the only thing to get cut. The memory cards also received price cuts. While this was certainly a step in the right direction for Sony, at least in terms of its memory card pricing, the memory cards themselves were still single-handedly acting as a barrier of entry for anyone even considering buying a PlayStation Vita, especially when you do the math and you realize that for $199.99 US plus the $79.99 US for the memory card, at least the 32GB card which you were going to need, that equates to about the same as a PlayStation 3. And with a PlayStation 3, you could get either a 360GB hard disk or a 500GB hard disk for the same cost of a PlayStation Vita with a memory card. Despite this, 1 month later after the announcement of the price cut, Sony Computer Entertainment announced the PS Vita 2000 series, a much lighter, redesigned system that only offered 1GB of internal storage for users. Now keep this in mind, the PSP Go, which launched several years prior, although it was an all-digital system, came with 16GB of storage on board. At this point, the writing was on the wall for PS Vita, and by 2013 and 2014, we began seeing the Vita disappear from store shelves and even Sony's own press conferences at PSX and their E3 briefings, as Sony Computer Entertainment America in Europe began sweeping the PS Vita under the rug, desperately trying to make people forget that it even existed, while primarily focusing on the PS4 system itself. However, something very interesting happened. While Sony of America in Europe began brushing the PS Vita under the rug or just touting it as a remote play-only device, sort of a companion to PS4, Sony of Japan began marketing it much more, and the result is sales picked up. Even to the point to where it began outselling the PS4 at certain points in 2014. When the Vita died in the US and in Europe, it got its rebirth in Japan and went on to continue moving units and software up until this day. While the PSP family of systems was a smash hit success, the Vita was ultimately a failure in the marketplace, and the Vita single-handedly was the worst selling PlayStation system in the company's history, only selling an estimated 16 million units compared to the 82 million units that the PSP did in the same amount of time on the marketplace. While this isn't exactly the best note for Sony to leave off of, I still have hopes that they will find a way to bring PlayStation experiences on the go. Because while their PlayStation 4 system is undoubtedly doing exceptionally well, on course to outselling the PS3 and might even catch up with the PS1 in terms of lifetime sales, I would still like to believe that perhaps there may be room for a portable PlayStation experience in Sony's portfolio. So, with all of that being said, what are your favorite memories with any of these PlayStation systems? Did you own a PSP back in the day, or did you own a PS Vita? And ironically enough, despite it being a flop, the Vita is actually my favorite system to play games on, because not only does it have its PS Vita selection, it's backwards compatible with PSP games via digital downloads, PS1 classics, and it's just such a great system for gaming and remote playing PS4 games that it has become my personal favorite portable of all time. So let me hear your thoughts down there in the comments section. I would love to hear your thoughts on the evolution of the PlayStation Portable family of systems. And as always, I will see you in the next video. Until then, take care.